Welcome again to my channel, everyone. This is Trev from Trevessence, and today we are going to continue the reading of the book Spare by Prince Harry. This morning, I want to say a very, very special thank you to those of you who chimed in on the live last night. I enjoyed that live, and I hope you all did too. Now, for those of you who weren't there, you might want to go back and watch that video and catch up on some of the details of this book that we went over. But this morning, we are going to be continuing the reading from part 3. And for those of you who are here right now, I want to say thank you so much for coming. You are welcome to hit that like button if you have not yet done so. You are welcome to share out the live. If you have not yet done so, invite your friends and your friends to come on over and listen to the reading of Spare by Prince Harry. Each morning over here, we read the book for about an hour or so. But if you are just coming, you are way behind because we are now on to not chapter, but part 21. That's where we are at right now, where Megan has just found out that she's pregnant. And the story seems to get even better from there. And I don't know about you, but I am excited. Very, very excited. All right. Let us move on without further ado because we don't have a lot of time this morning. So let us continue. We are on to chapter 50. We're on to chapter 55 from part 3. Jude was getting married to Jack, and we were deliriously happy for her and for ourselves, selfishly, since Jack was one of our favorite people. Meg and I were supposed to head off to our first official foreign tour as a married couple, but we delayed the departure several days so we could be at the wedding. Also, the various gatherings connected to the wedding would give us a chance to pull aside family members one by one and tell them our good news. At Windsor, just before a drink reception for the bride and groom, we cornered Pa in his study. He was sitting behind his big desk, which afforded his favorite view, straight down the long walk. Every window was open to cool the room, and a breeze was fluttering his papers, which were all stacked in squat little towers, each crowned by a paperweight. He was delighted to learn that he was going to be a grandpa for the 4th time. His eyes were wide open, and his smile warmed my heart. After the drink reception in George's hall, Meg and I pulled Willie aside. We were in a big room, suits of armor on the wall. Strange room, strange moment. We whispered the news, and Willie smiled and said we must tell Kate. She was across the room, talking to Pippa. I said we could do it later, but he insisted. So we went and told Kate, and she gave a big smile and hearty congratulations. They both reacted exactly as I'd hoped, as I'd wished. Hello, Overfowlers. How are you doing? Welcome into the live. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you're having a great morning. Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate you, my love. All right, let us move on to chapter 56. Days later, the pregnancy was announced publicly. The papers reported that Meg was battling fatigue and dizzy spells and couldn't hold any food down, especially in the mornings, all of which were untrue. She was tired, but otherwise a dynamo. Indeed, she felt lucky not to be suffering severe morning sickness, since we were embarking on a hugely demanding tour. Everywhere we went, enormous crowds turned out, and she didn't disappoint them. All across Australia, Tonga, Fiji, New Zealand, she dazzled. After one especially rousing speech, she got a standing ovation. She was so brilliant that midway through the tour, I felt compelled to warn her. You are doing too well, my love. Too damn well. You are making it look too easy. This is how everything started with my mother. Maybe I sounded mad, paranoid, but everyone knew that Mummy's situation went from bad to worse with, when she showed the world, showed the family that she was better at touring, better at connecting with people, better at being quote unquote royal than she had any right to be. That was when things really took a turn. We returned home to jubilant welcomes and exultant headlines. Meg, the expectant mother, the flawless representation of the crown, was hailed. Not a negative word was written. It's changed, we said. It's changed at last. But then it changed again. Oh, how it changed. Stories rolled in like breakers on a beach. First, a rubbish hit piece by a hack biographer of Pa, who said had thrown a tantrum before the wedding. Then a work of fiction about Meg making her staff miserable, driving them too hard, committing the unpardonable sin of emailing people early in the morning. She just happened to be up at that hour, trying to stay in touch with night owl friends back in America. She didn't expect an instant reply. She was she was also said to have driven our assistant to quit. In fact, that assistant was asked to resign by Palace HR after we showed them evidence she had traded on our position with Meg to get freebies. But because we couldn't speak publicly about the reasons from the assistant's departure, rumors filled the void. In many ways, that was the true start of all the troubles. Shortly thereafter, the Duchess difficult narrative began appearing in all the papers. Next came a novella in one of the tabloids about the tiara. The article said Meg had demanded a certain tiara that had belonged to Mummy, and when the Queen refused, I'd thrown a fit. What Meghan wants, Meghan gets. Days later came the coup de grace from a royal correspondent. A, a sci-fi fantasy describing the growing furore. Good Lord, between Kate and Meghan, claiming that, according to two sources, Meghan reduced Kate to tears about the bridesmaids' dresses. Here we go again. This particular royal correspondent had always made me sick. She had always got stuff wrong, but this felt more than wrong. I read the story in disbelief. Meg didn't. She still wasn't reading anything. She heard about it, however, since it was the only thing being discussed in Britain for the next 24 hours. And as long as I live, I'll never forget the tone in her voice as she looked me in the eye and said, Has I made her cry? I made her cry. I feel like crying. But anyway, we are not going to. We're going to move on to chapter 57 instead. Welcome into the live, guys. Thank you all so much for coming. If you're new here, a very special welcome to you. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, now is a great time to do so. And if you are a returning traveler, I want to say thank you for your continued support. Let's move on to chapter 57. We arranged a second summit with Willie and Kate, this time on our turf, December 10th of 2018, early evening. We all gathered in our little front annex, and this time there was no small talk. Kate got things rolling straight away by acknowledging that these stories in the papers about Meg making her cry were totally false. I know, Megan, that I was the one who made you cry. I sighed. Excellent start, I thought. Meg appreciated the apology, but wanted to know why the papers had said it and what was being done to correct them. In other words, why isn't your office standing up for me? Why haven't they found this execrable woman who wrote the story and demanded a retraction? Kate, flustered, didn't answer, and Willie chimed in with some very supportive sounding evasions. But I already knew the truth. No one at the palace could phone the correspondent because that would invite the inevitable retort. Well, if the story is wrong, what's the real story? What did happen between the two duchesses? And that door must never be opened because it would embarrass the future queen. The monarchy, always at all costs, had to be protected. We shifted from what to do about the story to where it came from. Who could have planted such a thing? Who could have leaked it to the press in the first place? Who? We went around and around and around. The list of suspects became vanishingly small. Finally, finally, Willie leaned back and conceded that, ahem, while we had been on tour in Australia, he and Kate had gone to dinner with Pa and Camilla. And alas, he said sheepishly, he might have let it slip that there had been strife between the two couples. I put a hand over my face. Meg froze. A heavy silence fell over us. So now we knew. I told Billy, you of all people, should have known better. He nodded. He knew. More silence. It was time for them to go. That there is the end of chapter 57 of part 3. Guys, we are now 56% into the book. If you have another book that you would like me to read, you are invited to suggest it, and I will do the honors. Let's move on to chapter 58. It kept on and on, one story after another. I thought at times of Mr. Morrison ceaselessly ringing his insane bell. Who can ever forget the spate of front page stories making Meg out to be a single-handedly responsible for the end times? Specifically, she had been quote unquote caught eating avocado toast, and many stories explained breathlessly that the harvest of avocados was hastening the destruction of the rainforest, disabling developing countries, and helping to fund state terrorism. Of course, the same media had recently swooned over Kate's love of avocados. Oh, how they make Kate's skin glow. Guys, you see how just one story can be twisted to suit the narrative that the person telling the story wants to portray. Because you see, they saw Megan eating avocado toast. Why in the world is she eating avocado toast? Hold on a sec, my friends. Okay. Okay, guys, I had to pause it a little bit there. All right. So as I was saying that the person telling the story can spin the narrative in such a fashion that that if you are not level-headed when listening to people talk, you might end up getting all excited or all angry over nothing. Because here they are talking about Megan eating avocado, and they made it seem as though she had destroyed the rainforest. Like, how dare her eat avocado? And yet, when they see Kate eating the avocado, it's like, wow, she's doing such a great thing. If the avocado makes her skin glow, like people can be so creative and so destructive at the same time. Cartian, welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for coming. You wake up, you enjoyed last night. Yes, I enjoyed last night. It's a pity I had to go so quickly, but I had to. So we will do this again. Next Tuesday, we are going to do. Next Tuesday, we will do it again. But by next Tuesday, the book might be finished. But then we will do a live about the details of the book. When the book is finished, we will get on to that. But it was an absolute pleasure having you all over last night. As always, we have fun together. And I thank you all for coming. We are on to chapter 58 of part 3. It kept on and on, one story after another. I thought at times of Mr. Morrison, ceaselessly ringing his insane bell. Who can ever forget the spate of front page stories making Meg out to be single handedly responsible for the end times? Specifically, she had been quote unquote caught eating avocado toast, and many stories explained breathlessly that the harvesting of avocados was hastening the destruction of the rainforest, disabling developing countries, and helping to fund state terrorism. Of course, the same media had recently swooned over Kate's love of avocados. Oh, how they made Kate's skin glow. Notably, it was around this time that the super narrative embedded within each story began to shift. It was no longer about two women fighting, two duchesses at odds, or even two households. It was now about one person being a witch and causing everyone to run from her. And that one person was my wife. And in building this super narrative, the press was clearly being assisted by someone or multiple someones inside the palace. I think it was Camilla. What do y'all think, guys? That's what I think. I think Camilla has been a little witch from the beginning, and I think she's continuing to be so. Yeah, I think she was the one. She took anything that William said and she spun it to suit herself. I could be wrong. As we read along, I might be wrong, but right now I'm just getting that feeling. That's the feeling I'm getting. But anyway, let's continue. Someone who had it in for Meg. One day it was a yuck. Meg's bra strap was showing. Careless Megan. The next day, yikes. She's wearing that dress? Trashy Megan. The following day it was God save us. Her fingernails are painted black. The goth Megan. The next day, goodness gracious, she still doesn't know how to curtsy properly. American Megan. The next day, cricky, she shut her own car door again. Uppity Megan. She can't do nothing right. Oh my God. These people, these people will drive you insane. I can't imagine what Megan was going through. Oh my God. Chapter 59. We had rented a house in Oxfordshire, just a place to get away now and then from the maelstrom, but also from Notcott, which was charming but too small and falling down around our heads. It got so bad that one day I had to phone Granny. I told her we needed a new place to live. I explained that Willie and Kate hadn't simply outgrown Notcott. They had fled it because of all the required repairs and the lack of room. And we were now in the same boat, with two rambunctious dogs and a baby on the way. I told her we had discussed our housing situation with the palace and we had been offered several properties, but each was too grand, we thought, too lavish, and too expensive to renovate. Granny gave it a think, and we chatted again days later. Frogmore, she said. Frogmore, Granny? Yes, Frogmore. Frogmore House? I knew it well. That was where we had taken our engagement photos. No, no, Frogmore Cottage, near Frogmore House. Sort of hidden, she said, tucked away, originally home, originally home to Queen Charlotte and her daughters, then to one of Queen Victoria's aides, and later it was chopped into smaller units, but it could be reassembled. Lovely place, Granny said, plus historic, part of the Crown Estate, very sweet. I told her that Meg and I loved the gardens at Frogmore. We went walking there often, and if it were near those, well, what could be better? She warned, it's a bit of a building site, bit of a shell, but go and have a look, and do tell me if it works. We went that day, and Granny was right. The house spoke to us both. Charming, full of potential, hard by the royal building ground. But so what? Didn't bother me or Meg. We wouldn't disturb the dead if they'd promised not to disturb us. I rang Granny and said Frogmore Cottage would be a dream come true. I thanked her profusely. With her permission, we began sitting down with builders, planning the minimum renovations to make the place habitable, piping, heating, water. While the work was being done, we thought we could move into Oxfordshire full time. We loved it out there. The air was fresh, the verdant grounds, plus no paps. Best of all, we'd be able to call upon the talents of my father's longtime butler, Kevin. We knew the Oxfordshire house, and he knew the Oxfordshire house, and he had known how to turn it quickly into a home. Better yet, he knew me, held me as a baby, and befriended my mother when she was wandering Windsor Castle in search of a sympathetic face. He told me that Mummy was the only person in the family who ever dared venture below stairs to chat with staff. In fact, she'd often sneak down and sit with Kevin in the kitchen over a drink or snack, watching telly. It had fallen to Kevin on the day of Mummy's funeral to greet me and Willie on our return to Highgrove. He stood on the front steps, he recalled, waiting for our car. Hold on there, guys. There's a noise in the background. Okay, Cad, good morning. All right, let us continue. Cad, what's up? How are you doing, Cad? I need to make that phone call today, sis. I shall not forget as soon as I'm finished with this. Because in a few minutes, I'm going to go get the grandbabies to school. All right, let us continue. It had fallen to Kevin on the day of Mummy's funeral to greet me and Willie on our return to Highgrove. He stood on the front steps, he recalled, waiting for our car, rehearsing what he'd say. But when we pulled up and he opened the car door, I said, "How are you holding up, Kevin?" So polite, he said, so repressed, I thought. Meg adored Kevin and vice versa. So I thought this could be the start of something good. A much needed change of scenery, a much needed ally in our corner. Then one day, I looked down at my phone. A text from our team alerted me to huge splashy stories in the Sun and the Daily Mail, featuring detailed overhead photos of Oxfordshire. A helicopter was hovering above the property, a pap hanging out of the door, aiming telephoto lenses at every window, including our bedroom. Thus ended the dream of Oxfordshire. Good God, these people are determined. These people are not just determined, but disgusting. Why you're going to be shining a camera, taking pictures of somebody in their bedroom? I understand why these people were going crazy because you can have absolutely no privacy. You cannot even have privacy if you want to have a special romantic moment with your spouse. Somebody might be taking a photograph. Somebody is doing something surreptitious, trying to obtain a photograph of you in the most intimate of situations. Jehovah Jireh to the Lamb. These people are so unrelenting. No wonder they've driven the couple crazy and had them run away from that place. My, oh my, oh my. They're being surveilled internally and externally. And that, my friends, could drive anybody crazy. Chapter 60. I walked home from the office and found Meg sitting on the stairs. She was sobbing uncontrollably. My love, what's happened? I thought for sure we had lost the baby. I went to her on my knees. She choked out that she didn't want to do this anymore. Do what? Live? I didn't catch her meaning at first. I didn't understand. Maybe didn't want to understand. My mind just didn't want to process the words. It's all so painful, she was saying. What is, my love? To be hated like this. For what? What had she done? She asked. She really wanted to know. What sin had she committed to deserve this kind of treatment? She just wanted to make the pain stop, she said, not only for her, but for everyone. For me, for her mother, but she couldn't make it stop. So she had decided to disappear. Disappear? Without her, she said, all the press would go away, and then I wouldn't have to live like this. Our unborn child would never have to live like this. It's so clear, she kept saying. It's so clear. Just stop breathing. Stop being. This ex- this exists because I exist. Oh my God. They're driving the woman bonkers already. Oh my God. I begged her not to talk like that. I promised her we'd get through it. We'd find a way. In the meantime, we'd find her the help she needed. I asked her to be strong. Hang on. Incredibly, while reassuring her and hugging her, I couldn't entirely stop thinking like a fucking royal. We had a sent- we had a sentable engagement that night at the Royal Albert Hall, and I kept telling myself, we can't be late. We cannot be late. They'll skin us alive and they'll blame her. Slowly, too slowly, I realized that tardiness was the least of our problems. I said she should skip the engagement, of course. I needed to go, make a quick appearance. I'd be home fast. No, she insisted. She didn't trust herself to be at home alone for even an hour with such dark feelings. So we put on our best kit, and she applied dark lipstick to draw attention away from her bloodshot eyes. And out of the door we went. The car pulled up outside the Royal Albert Hall, and we stepped out into the blue flashing lights of the police escort and the whiteout lights of the press and their flashbulbs. Meg reached for my hand. She gripped it tightly. As we went inside, she gripped it even tighter. I was buoyed by the tightness of that grip. She's hanging on, I thought. She's hanging on. Better than letting go. But when we settled into the royal box and the lights dimmed, she let go of her emotions. She couldn't hold back the tears. She wept silently. The music struck up. We turned and faced the front. We spent the entire length of the performance, Cirque du Soleil, squeezing each other's hands, me promising her in a whisper, trust me, I'll keep you safe, darling. Just trust me. OMG. OMG. You see, a courtier, yes, I think so. I think it was her. She wanted the spotlight for herself. She wanted to be the one who because nobody was seeing her. Nobody was even talking about her. Nobody was even paying her any mind. So I think that she thought Megan was getting the spotlight, and whether it was good press or bad press, she wasn't in the press. So she wanted to be there. I couldn't stand her from the beginning. I still can't stand her. Even her face looks like a witch. Anywho, it's not for me to take on. That is not my battle. So let us move on to chapter 61. I awoke to a text from Jason. Bad news. What is it now? The mail on Sunday had printed the private letter Megan had written to her father, the letter that Granny and Pa urged her to write. It was February of 2019. I was in bed. Meg was lying next to me, still asleep. I waited a bit, then broke the news to her softly. Your father's giving you a letter to the mail. No, Meg, I don't know what to say. He has given them your letter. That moment, for me, was decisive about Mr. Markle, but also about the press. There had been so many moments, but that for me was the one. I didn't want to hear any more talk of protocols, tradition, strategy. Enough, I thought, enough. The paper knew it was illegal to publish that letter. They knew full well and did it anyway. Why? Because they also knew Meg was defenseless. They knew she didn't have the staunch support of my family. And how else could they have known this, except from the people close to the family or inside the family? The papers knew that the only recourse Meg had was to sue, and she couldn't do that because there was only one lawyer working with the family, and that lawyer was under the control of the palace. And the palace would never authorize him to act on Meg's behalf. There was nothing in that letter to be ashamed about. A daughter pleading with her father to behave decently. Meg stood by every word. She'd always known it might be intercepted, that one of her father's neighbors or one of the paps staking out his house might steal his post. Anyway, she knew that anything was possible. But she never stopped to think her father would actually offer it, or that a paper would actually take it and print it. The father is a little mole too, guys. Yeah, her father is a little mole too. We discovered that before. He is. And edit it. Indeed, that might have been the most galling thing. The way the editors cut and pasted Meg's words to make them sound less loving. Boy, these people. When people are out after you, they can be so cruel. Seeing something so deeply personal smeared across the front pages, gobbled up by Britons over their morning toast and marmalade, was invasive enough. But the pain was compounded tenfold by the simultaneous interviews with alleged handwriting experts who analyzed Meg's letter and inferred from the way she crossed her T's and curved her R's that she was a terrible person. Oh my God. Right word slant, over emotional, highly stylized, consummate performer, uneven baseline, no impulse control. Oh my God. The look on Meg's face as I told her about these libels rolling out. I knew my way around grief, and there was no mistaking it. This was pure grief. She was mourning the loss of her father, and she was also mourning the loss of her own innocence. She reminded me in a whisper, as if someone might be listening, that she had taken a handwriting class in high school, and as a result, she had always had excellent penmanship. People complimented her. She had even used this skill at university to earn spare money. Nights, weekends, she had inscribed wedding and birthday party invitations to pay the rent. Now, people were trying to say that this was some kind of window into her soul, and the window was dirty. Guys, this is not funny. This is absolutely tormenting. Imagine living your life like that. People scrutinizing you every day. I mean, can you blame Harry and Meghan for running away from that place? Can you blame them? I know I can't blame them for running away. I would have run away a long time ago. I think they stayed a long time under those circumstances. I would have been gone. Let's move on. Tormenting Meghan Markle has become a national sport that shames us, said a headline in The Guardian. So true. But no one was ashamed. That was the problem. No one was feeling the slightest pang of conscience. Would they finally feel some if they caused the divorce? Or would it take another's death? Hmm. What had become of all the shame they had felt in the late 1990s? Meg wanted to sue. Me too. Rather, we both felt we hmm, rather we both felt we had no choice. If we didn't sue over this, we said, what kind of signal would we be sending? To the press, to the world. So we conferred again with the palace lawyer. We were given a runaround, another runaround. I reached out to Pa and Willie. They had both sued the press in the past over invasions and lies. Pa sued over so called black spider letters, his memos to government officials. Willie sued over topless photos of Kate. But both vehemently opposed the idea of Meg and me taking any legal action. Why? I asked. They hummed and hummed and hawed. The only answer I could get out of them was that it simply wasn't advisable. The done thing, etc. I told Meg, you'd think we were suing a dear friend of theirs. Oh no, they weren't gonna sue. They are acting in front of him as though they really appreciate the wife he has chosen and they really like her and they're being cordial and stuff. But deep down, they're undercover haters. Yeah, deep down, they don't want her to experience the same privileges that they experience as royals because to them she's a commoner, she's an outsider, she is not supposed to have the entitlement that other royal family members have because they don't see her as somebody who has been brought in to the family but is expected to be treated as part of the family. They don't see her that way. They don't. So that is why they are treating her as they are. Let us move on to chapter 62. We are now 87% into the book. Thank you all so much for staying with me. Thank you all so much for chiming in for each morning as we read this book. I appreciate you all coming and I appreciate you all listening. Chapter 62 of part 3. Let's move on. Chapter 62 of part 3. Willie asked for a meeting. He wanted to talk about everything, the whole rolling catastrophe. Just him and me, he said. As it happened, Meg was out of town visiting girlfriends, so his timing was perfect. I invited him over. An hour later, he walked into Notcott, where he hadn't been since Meg first moved in. He looked piping hot. It was evening. It was early evening. I offered him a drink, asked about his family. Everyone good. He didn't ask about mine. He just went all in. Chips to the center of the table. Meg's difficult, he said. Oh, really? She's rude. She's abrasive. She's alienated half the staff. Not the first time he had parroted the press narrative. Duchess difficult. All that bullshit. Rumors, lies from his team. Tabloid rubbish. And I told him so again and again. I told him I expected better from my older brother. I was shocked to see that this actually pissed him off. Had he come here expecting something different? Did he think I'd agree that my bride was a monster? I told him to step back, take a breath, really ask himself, wasn't Meg his sister-in-law? Wasn't this institution wasn't this institution be toxic for any newcomer? Worst case scenario, if his sister-in-law was having trouble adjusting to a new office, a new family, a new country, a new culture, couldn't he see his way clear to cutting her some slack? Couldn't you just be there for her? Help her? He had no interest in a debate. He had come to lay down the law. He wanted me to agree that Meg was wrong and then agree to do something about it. Like what? Like what, Willie? Scold her? Fire her? Divorce her? I didn't know. But Willie didn't know either. He wasn't being rational. Every time I tried to slow him down, point out the illogic of what he was saying, he got louder. We were soon talking over each other, both of us shouting. Among all the different riotous emotions coursing through my brother that afternoon, one really jumped out at me. He seemed aggrieved. He seemed put upon that I wasn't meekly obeying him, that I was being so impertinent as to deny him or defy him, to refute his knowledge, which came from his trusted aides. There was a script here, and I had the audacity not to be following it. He was in full here mode and couldn't fathom why I wasn't dutifully playing the role of the spare. Oh my God. Imagine that. Imagine that. Let us continue. I was sitting on the sofa. He was standing over me. I remember saying, "You need to hear me out, Willie." He wouldn't. He simply would not listen. To be fair, he felt the same about me. He called me names, all kinds of names. He said I refused to take responsibility for what was happening. He said I didn't care about my office and the people who worked for me. Willie gave me one example of, oh my God, here they go at it again. Willie and Harry fighting because Harry has to defend his wife. And Willie is thinking that Harry is not listening to him, like he's some kind of a boss, and Harry is supposed to respect him as the future king and listen to him as he speaks, not as you speak ugly about my wife. We ain't gonna do that. Let us continue. Let's continue. Willie, give me one example of. He cut me off, said he was trying to help me. Are you serious? Help me. Sorry, is that what you call this? Helping me? For some reason, that really set him off. He stepped towards me, swearing. To that point, I'd been feeling uncomfortable, but now I felt a bit scared. I stood, brushed past him, went out to the kitchen, to the sink. He was right on my heels, berating me, shouting. I poured a glass of water for myself and one for him as well. I handed it to him. I didn't think he took a sip. Willie, I can't speak to you when you are like this. He set down the water, called me another name, then came at me. It all happened so fast, so very fast. He grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace, and he knocked me to the floor. I landed on the dog's bowl, which cracked under my back, the pieces cutting into me. I lay there for a moment, dazed, then got to my feet and told him to get out. Come on, hit me. You'll feel better if you hit me. Do what? Come on, we always used to fight. You'll feel better if you hit me. No, no, only you'll feel better if I hit you. Please, please, Willie, just leave. Just leave. He left the kitchen, but he didn't leave not caught. He was in the sitting room. I could tell. I stayed in the kitchen. 2 minutes passed, 2 long minutes. He came back looking regretful and apologized. He walked to the front door. This time I followed. Before leaving, he turned and called back. You don't need to tell Meg about this. You mean, you mean that you attacked me? I didn't attack you, Harold. I didn't. Fine, I said. I won't tell her. Good. Thank you. He left. I looked at the phone. A promise is a promise, I told myself, so I couldn't call my wife, much as I wanted to. But I needed to talk to someone, so I rang my therapist. Thank God, she answered. I apologized for the intrusion, told her I didn't know who else to call. I told her I'd had a fight with Willie. He had knocked me to the floor. I looked down and told her that my shirt was ripped, my necklace was broken. We had had a million physical fights in our lives, I told her. As boys, we had done nothing but fight. But this felt different. The therapist told me to take deep breaths. She asked me to describe the scene several times. Each time I did it seemed more like a bad dream and made me feel a bit calmer. I told her, I'm proud of myself. Proud, Harry? Why is that? I didn't hit him back. I stayed true to my word, didn't tell Meg. But not long after she returned from her trip, she saw me coming out of the shower and gasped, Haz, what are those scrapes and bruises on your back? I couldn't lie to her. She wasn't that surprised, and she wasn't at all angry. She was terribly sad. Welcome, Sister Winsome. How are you doing? Welcome into the live, my friends. Thank you all so much for coming. It's my absolute pleasure reading this book to us, for us, with us. I'm enjoying it, and I hope you all are enjoying it too. We are going to be reading one more chapter before I've got to get my morning going. So be prepared. We are going to read chapter 63, part 3, and that's going to be the last chapter for this morning. Chapter 63. Soon after that day, it was announced that the two royal households, Cambridge and Sussex, would no longer share an office, would no longer be working together in any capacity. The Fab Four, Finis. Reaction was about as expected. The public groaned, journalists brayed. The more disheartening response was from my family. Silence. They never commented. They never commented publicly, never said anything privately to me. I never heard from Pa, never heard from Granny. It made me think, really think, about the silence that surrounded everything else that happened to me and Meg. I'd always told myself that just because everyone in my family didn't explicitly condemn press attacks, it didn't mean they condoned them. But now I ask, is that true? How do I know? If they never say anything, why do I so often assume that I know how they feel and that they are unequivocally on our side? Everything I'd been th- Everything I'd been taught, everything I'd grown up believing about the family and about the monarchy, about its essential fairness, its job of uniting rather than dividing, was being undermined and called into question. Was it all fake? Was it all just a show? Because if we couldn't stand up for one another, rally around our newcomers, our first biracial member, then what were we really? Hmm. A great question, Harry. A great question. A great question about your family. Yeah. What are they really? What do they stand for? What do they really stand for? Can somebody tell me? I don't see what they stand for. Just a bunch of people who have assumed authority, just self-assumed authority that has been brought down through the generations. That's all. That's all. But anywho, We shall continue. Was it all fake? Was it all just a show? Because if we couldn't stand up for one another, rally around our newest member, our first biracial member, then what were we really? Was that a true constitutional monarchy? Was that a real family? Isn't defending each other the first rule of every family? That's a great question to end with, guys. A great question to end with this morning. What is true family? And as we read today, can we just examine our own families and see how well we stand up for each other? And not to get me wrong, sometimes even your family members, you got to cut off. Some people got to be cut off and treated like absolute strangers. Yeah? Yeah. If they choose to violate. But then again, on a better note, standing up for your family and being there for your family is always, always for me, actually, one of my greatest achievements in this short life. Yeah. I love standing up for my family, love being with my family, just love family camaraderie as opposed to being with people who I've met who are not blood related. All right. So that's going to be it for me. Fly girl, Georgia. How are you doing, my love? How are you? Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Guys, there is my sister Fly Girl Georgia is in the house. Yes, this is going to be the end of the reading for this morning. We will continue reading again tomorrow. Tomorrow, Thursday, we will be continuing the reading tomorrow. I thank you all so much for coming in. Thank you all so much for joining me. Until next time, my friends, this is Trev from Traversance, where your journey matters. See you all later, my friends.